Hello and welcome. I am Sir Guy Man, and this is What If California Was Bought by Denmark? I hope you enjoy the video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. And let's get on with the video. Trump tweets out that he wants to buy Greenland from Denmark. Denmark agrees and says only if they can buy California. Trump agrees, but only if Denmark pays $890 billion. Denmark agrees and starts the payments, and California is handed over to Denmark, and in return, Greenland is handed over to the United States. Californians rejoice, and the American flag is lowered over the state capital of Sacramento, and the Danish flag is raised in its place. And also, Solvang is the new state capital of California, and if you don't know, Solvang is basically just like a Danish city, but in California. Fast forward a bit, and America is starting to feel the effects of California leaving the Union. This is mainly because, well, California is, at the time of recording, the fourth largest economy in the world. Uh, like, if it was its own country, it'd be the fourth largest economy. It has a GDP of, I think, $4.4 trillion. So yeah, it's a big blow to America. California gives to the United States $81 billion more than it receives from the government. And now, well, the government isn't getting that $81 billion, and the lack of California's funds is starting to hit the United States. In the rest of the United States, economic downturn is, or like a recession is starting to mount. But in California, it's doing pretty good. Now that California is a part of Denmark, Denmark is now the fourth largest economy in the world, which is great. Which is now great for Denmark because now it's like really rich. Basically, a really powerful country in the EU now. It's basically overtakes Germany and France a little. Well, in terms of economics. Not only is Denmark now the fourth largest economy, but Denmark also gets the luxury of In-N-Out. And because Denmark gets the luxury of In-N-Out, the rest of Europe now also gets the luxury of In-N-Out. And also, Californians no longer need a passport to go from California to Europe because they are now part of the EU, meaning that they don't need a passport to travel to like France because France is part of the EU. They still need a passport to go to the UK though, but that's whatever. No one goes to the UK. In LA, San Francisco, and many other major cities across California, the city governments are starting to approve new city planning ideas such as better public transit and larger bike lanes and more walkable cities. The freeways in LA have been shut down and are being redesigned into like trains and stuff. Trump starting to get buyer's remorse because, as you know, Greenland is full of ice and not green, despite what the name implies. They can't. Trump wants to drill for oil, but all the oil is like buried underneath the ice, and it'd be a lot too, and it's like too costly and hard to drill through the ice. So Trump is getting buyer's remorse. He tells Denmark, "Hey, can we switch back?" And Denmark says no takesy backsies, which kind of pisses Trump off. And now Trump is starting to prepare for war. On the border of California, on the 10 highway, crossing from Blythe into Arizona, a little border skirmish breaks out between crossing guards on California's side and American troops in, Arizona. A little skirmish breaks out, and sources indicate that American troops started this skirmish. For what reasons? People people aren't aware. But the Americans started the skirmish, and a few gunshots were heard, but after that it quickly dissipated. Only one person was injured, and it was a Danish border guard. Trump blames Denmark and tells them to prepare for war. Now, America is in NATO, as you might know, so, you can't really declare war on a NATO ally. However, Trump does not care. He is spinning this as a major disaster, basically like as bad as Pearl Harbor, and is rallying Americans into fighting a war with Denmark. Now, the rest of NATO sees this. The European NATO sees this. Canada sees this, and they're like, "Hey, we no, America was the reason for the border skirmish, and if America decides to declare war on Denmark, then they're gonna have to go to war with all of us." Trump declares war on Denmark and subsequently the rest of NATO. The rest of NATO then goes and declares war on Trump, or well, not on Trump, but on America. So troops on the border of Northern California, American troops, they cross into Northern California. There's not much up here. I think like the biggest city up this way is Crescent City, but even then it's not like that big of a city. There's nothing much up here, so American troops are able to like kind of storm in. The residents in Northern California, or specifically this area of California, are not like hateful towards the American troops because these guys aren't really too happy with the whole leaving the US. So the people living up here aren't really bothered by American troops coming to like save them, I guess. American troops move further in to Northern California. European aid can't really, reach California because they'd have to first go all the way across the Atlantic, cross through here, cross into Panama, and then go through the canal and then go all the way up here to California, which is quite a long way. So instead, they're sending their weapons and troops and other ammunitions into Canada, which are then being sent over to California. And also in Canada, because they are technically at war with the United States, they are going to be invaded. American troops are going to cross over the border and start to invade. I think this is like Newfoundland and Labrador, or Labrador and Newfoundland, or New Brunswick and Labrador. I don't know. I know that this general area is where Newfoundland is, and Brunswick and Labrador and all that. But yes, American troops, regardless of what this is called, move in and quickly capture all this. They are able to take all this area, including Prince Edward's Island. This is a big blow to Canada, but yeah. Soon they move towards Ottawa. This is where a fierce battle happens. America doesn't win, but still. Down here, Canada is invaded even more. The troops move across this little river from Detroit and begin invading. They are able to completely capture Lake Erie. Troops then move further up into this little area up here, and then, but yeah, European troops and weapons are kind of doing good. Instead of this being a complete wipeout where all of Quebec is taken instantly, it's European supplies and troops haven't really entirely crossed the Atlantic yet. These are still like the Canadian forces, so that's why they're kind of, really getting their asses kicked. So down here in Southern California, there's a lot more troops because of LA and like the nearby LA area. So there's a lot more troops, which means a better defense. So troops cross over the Colorado River and into Arizona and are able to like take a lot of land. Californian troops also cross into Nevada and then quickly move over to Vegas and then capture Vegas, which is a big blow to Nevada because that's basically its moneymaker. And then Californians also get to the Hoover Dam and there's a battle there. And the Californians win the battle, the Hoover Dam, and gain almost complete control of the Colorado. Which is a bad thing because America also quite likes the Colorado. So Cali is continuing to be beaten back in the north because European aid can't get to them. They're also starting to lose a bit of land in Nevada. They're able to hold on to the Hoover Dam. There's no second battle there because they like heavily fortify this area. However, American troops still push back into Arizona. California troops are starting to lose a bit of steam, but a new contender very much shifts the tides of the war, and that will be China. China is not a big fan of the United States because at this time America has gone through with implementing a bunch of tariffs on them, and also because China is like, enemy number one to America. So China, sensing how it can further destabilize the US, begins to send supplies to California, such as like tanks, guns, and like drones and stuff. This angers America. They're like, no, you can't do that. And China's like, you know what? Watch me do this anyways. So as ships move eastwards and across the Pacific, they get near Hawaii. They are like very close. They're maybe like 100 or so miles off. This angers the United States, and so they launch a sneak attack on Chinese shipments and completely sink a bunch of shipments and a bunch of ships, leading to hundreds, if not thousands, of sailor deaths and a bunch of equipment lost to the sea, which and this angers China, like, hey, you can't do that. And America's like, yeah, we can. So China announces that it will join the war on the side of California. This is devastating news to the United States because Europe, acting as like one country, is basically like the maybe like third strongest nation in the world, especially now that California is owned by them. And now, not only has the basically the third strongest nation in the world joined up against them, but also the second strongest nation in the world again has joined up against them. And even though the United States is the first strongest nation, having the next two strongest nations against you isn't really a good idea. So China launches a naval invasion of Hawaii, and they're able to take a bunch of almost all the islands quite instantly. They do Pearl Harbor Part 2, Chinese Boogaloo, and basically sink a bunch of ships. And just like that, Hawaii is occupied by the Chinese, which means basically safe passage from Hawaii or from China to California without American interference, which is good news for California as Chinese troops and weapons start to move into the state. Now that California is getting all of these troops and weapons and supplies, they are able to push the Americans out of the northern part of their state. The Americans are driven out of California, and now the fun begins of California starting to invade America. So quite instantly, Californian troops spill over the northern border and into Oregon. They immediately go around Lake Tahoe and completely take it over. They are able to capture Reno and Carson City, which are Nevada's next two biggest cities, which greatly cripples Nevada because other than Carson City, Reno, and Vegas, there's basically nothing but desert. And in this desert, Californian troops begin to cross into or begin to invade more of this desert. Uh, I don't know. They don't really need to invade this desert, but like whatever. And then also, all while that is happening, and all while that is being like all while this is happening over here, America has completely taken control of Vancouver and connected up with Hawaii or with Alaska. So the United States basically controls all of the important cities of Canada. However, with China in the war and on the side of, Canada, they begin a naval invasion of Vancouver Island in which their aim is to liberate it from the Americans. So they land in Vancouver and or on Vancouver Island and fight their way down the island, eventually reaching Vancouver City, or well, the city of Vancouver, and a really bloody battle takes place. 50,000 American troops die, and 100,000 Chinese troops die, which is a big blow to America, but not that big of a blow to China. And in total of the Battle of Vancouver Island, about 250,000 Chinese troops die, and about 75,000 American troops die, meaning it's like one of the bloodiest battles of the war so far. But nonetheless, China is victorious and lands troops in mainland Canada, and they begin to invade and kick out the Americans. Even though this is red, it's basically like Chinese and Canadian troops. Uh, so China isn't invading Canada, but yeah. So China continues to liberate Canada or Canadian lands. The Canadians there are grateful, but they're soon ungrateful because China is going to be China and commit some atrocities, even though the Americans were already also committing atrocities and war crimes. So Canadians are basically screwed in this area, but nonetheless, Chinese continue to kick Americans out of Canada and eventually begin to invade into Alaska. And if you are a Fallout fan like I am, you will immediately recognize that this is the end of the world, and America launches all of its nukes, blows up California, nukes Hawaii in self-defense, nukes all this over here, and yeah, no, that doesn't happen because this is in the Fallout timeline, and I'm not a fan of nukes. Nukes make things boring. So I'll continue on of the Chinese invasion of Alaska. So yeah, Chinese invade Alaska. I don't think there's that much importance down here, except for I think Juneau, or I think Juneau's like up there. But yeah, not only does China invade Alaska, but they continue to liberate Canada. And not only are Chinese troops are completely or like not only are Chinese troops aren't just confined to the western coast of Canada, they're also shipped out across the country and over here into the more important parts of Canada, where like Toronto, Ontario, and Ottawa are. And so now that not only European troops and weapons and now Chinese troops and weapons are have reached eastern Canada, they begin their counteroffensive and move into Ontario and begin liberating this island or this like little peninsula over here. They then also or move in over here and kick the Americans out of New Brunswick and Labrador, I think. And then also Canadians and Chinese and Europeans start to move into Maine and like upstate New York and New England, which is now starting to like threaten the eastern seaboard of the United States, which is not good. Because this is like from Boston all the way down to like DC is like where a bunch of Americans live. Like there's Boston, New York City, Philly, DC, and a bunch more cities. With this new Canadian invasion threatening the United States, the U.S. is forced to move troops away from California and into the Northeast, which allows California to move further into Arizona and also up into Oregon. They are able to take most of the state. The Oregonians welcome Californians with open arms. Oregonians also kind of wanted to become Danish, but they weren't considered, so they basically join up with the Californians and begin to invade into Washington. And Californian troops get closer and closer to Seattle. Chinese troops also cross into Washington and threaten Seattle as well. Now, it is July 4th, the 249th birthday of America, and on this 249th birthday of America comes heavy, heavy losses. Almost instantly, Seattle is taken. Washington is much kind of like Oregon, Oregon and California, they're liberal. So Washington, Washington, and like almost completely like falls to the Danish and Californians and the Chinese. But that's just the first in a long string of losses, because Californian slash Danish troops move into Arizona and capture Phoenix, the capital of Arizona. And also, with this devastating loss of Washington and Oregon, the United States no longer has access to the Pacific, which is horrible for their trade. Along with the losses of Phoenix and Seattle, America also loses Albany uh, and much of New England. They completely lose Maine, almost completely lose Vermont and New Hampshire, and lose Boston as well. They also lose Detroit, which I don't know. I guess America celebrates or whatever because it's Detroit, even though Detroit is basically on the up and up and basically kind of recovering. But yeah, the two Canadian fronts meet up and completely take over Lake Erie. Canadian troops also move further into Michigan, and I think they take Lansing as well. With these heavy losses and Canadian troops starting to move closer and closer to the capital, Trump's cabinet and the media and basically everyone else in the United States starts to kind of like beg and plead with the president to like end the war. Trump is like, no, we're going to continue the war. And at 5:56 p.m., Trump suffers a mysterious heart attack and dies. If the White House claims that it was a heart attack, though when the media presses about it, it is the White House shuts down all conversation, and J.D. Vance is sworn in as the new president. And when J.D. Vance is sworn in, he immediately calls up the leaders of Canada, the European NATO and China, and negotiates a ceasefire between the U.S. and China and NATO. And now we officially see the end of the war, So let's look at the peace treaty that is negotiated. So this is the peace treaty. Denmark gains Washington, Oregon, Nevada, and Arizona because, they want to, and America doesn't really have any cards on the table, or they don't really have much leverage, so they basically lose the entire West Coast, and they also lose access to the Pacific, which isn't really good for them. They also lose basically all of New England. They lose Maine, New Hampshire, upstate New York, Boston or Massachusetts, and they lose access to Lake Erie, and they also lose Detroit. They also lose Greenland. It is given back to the Danish for the simple reason of, well, they lost the war. China also gets a few, or gets some land out of this. They are able to negotiate away Hawaii from the United States, and they also take the southern part of Alaska from the United States. And yeah, that's basically it. So that is the peace treaty. America is very, very crippled. They probably will never be able to like recover from this financially. Trump admin is also basically ousted, and special elections are held, and someone else is elected. Don't know who. Don't care either. This is the end of the video. I hope you guys like this video. If you did, like, comment, and subscribe. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. And before you go ahead disliking this, just remember this is a work of fiction. Would this actually happen in real life? Very much no. For one, the United States would not allow the sale of California as it's much too valuable. And would the U.S. lose this war? Probably not, maybe not. I don't know, it's up against China and Europe, so maybe they probably won't lose to this degree, but they might maybe still lose. But yes, this is the end of the video. Like, comment, and subscribe as I said earlier, and I'll see you in the next video.